Patria Potestas. In ancient Rome, the law gave fathers absolute power over their households, including the legal right to sell their own children into slavery, up to 3 times before a son was finally freed from his authority for good. For centuries, this seemed like just another harsh footnote in Roman law. But look closer at how far this power actually reached, and the picture gets stranger. A father could block or approve his adult son's marriage well into his 40s, and some legal scholars argued he could even order the execution of a child for serious offenses, though real documented cases of this were rare. So this wasn't simply strict parenting by modern standards. It was a legal system that treated children, even fully grown ones, as property their father never stopped owning. Animal trials. In the 13th to 18th centuries, European courts formally put animals on trial for crimes, complete with judges, witnesses, and assigned defense lawyers. For a long time, this sounds like a bit of medieval folklore, exaggerated with retelling, but the surviving court records tell a different story. Pigs, rats, and even swarms of insects were summoned to ecclesiastical and secular courts alike, and some defense lawyers actually won their cases, arguing the animals had a God-given right to eat. So this wasn't a myth invented later to mock the past. It reflected a real medieval belief that the entire natural world, not just humanity, was bound by the same moral and legal order. The Sow Trial of 1457. In France, a pig was formally tried and convicted for killing a child and then executed under the full authority of the court. Incredibly enough, the story doesn't end with just the conviction. The pig's own piglets were also charged as accomplices, and the court ultimately acquitted them for lack of evidence that they had participated. Historians have found the trial documented in careful legal language, following the same procedures used for human defendants. So this single case wasn't an isolated joke passed down through legend. It's one of dozens of similarly documented livestock prosecutions across France and Germany in this era. The Weevil Trial. In 1545, French villagers sued a swarm of weevils in ecclesiastical court, blaming the insects for destroying their vineyards. Of course, this seems like an impossible case to actually argue, but a lawyer was assigned to defend the weevils, and he argued they had as much right to eat God's plants as the humans who had planted them. The case dragged on for months, with the court debating whether relocating the insects would satisfy divine law. So this wasn't just a village overreacting to a bad harvest. It was a serious attempt to apply the concept of justice to a natural disaster the people of the time simply didn't understand. Sumptuary Laws. Under Elizabeth I, English law dictated exactly what fabrics and colors a person was legally allowed to wear based on their social rank. This sounds like it should have been unenforceable in practice, but wearing the wrong fabric wasn't treated as a fashion mistake. It was a real punishable offense, carrying actual fines. Only earls or higher could legally wear cloth of gold or certain imported furs, and inspectors genuinely checked. So this wasn't a suggestion or a matter of etiquette. It was a legal wall built to keep class boundaries visibly frozen in place, so no merchant could ever look richer than a nobleman. The Black Act. In 1723, England passed a single law that created more than 50 new capital offenses overnight, meaning you could be legally hanged for poaching a rabbit or disguising your face at night. For centuries, this level of punishment for minor theft seemed almost unbelievable, but Parliament passed it in direct response to armed poaching gangs who blackened their faces to hide their identity, which is where the act gets its name. Historians consider it one of the bloodiest pieces of legislation ever passed in British history. So this wasn't an exaggeration of how harshly property crime was once punished. It remained largely in force for close to a century before reform finally stripped away most of its death penalties. Coverture Law. In 19th century America, a woman's legal identity was considered fully absorbed into her husband's the moment she married, stripping her ability to own property or sign contracts independently. This sounds like a broad generalization about the era, but the legal reality was remarkably specific. A married woman legally could not keep her own wages, and reform came only state by state, starting with Mississippi's Married Women's Property Act in 1839. So the change wasn't sudden or nationwide.
It took decades of separate, uneven legal battles before similar protections finally reached the rest of the country. Prohibition. From 1920 to 1933, the United States banned the manufacture and sale of alcohol nationwide, aiming to build a sober country. Incredibly enough, doctors could still legally prescribe whiskey for medicinal purposes throughout the entire ban. Pharmacies filled well over 1 million of these medicinal prescriptions every single year, and households that had stockpiled alcohol before the law took effect were allowed to keep it. So Prohibition wasn't really the dry decade people imagine. It fueled a thriving black market instead. And the amendment was repealed just 13 years later, the only one in American history to be fully reversed. The Nuremberg Laws. In 1935, Nazi Germany passed legislation stripping Jewish citizens of their citizenship and criminalizing marriage between Jews and non-Jewish Germans. For a long time afterward, the mechanics of how this was enforced remained under-examined, but the laws were built entirely on pseudo-scientific racial classifications with no basis in real biology, and officials were required to trace family lineage back generations to determine legal status. So this wasn't simply prejudice expressed through policy, it was prejudice given the full legal machinery of the state, laying the groundwork for the atrocities that followed. Banned car ownership. Under communist Albania's Enver Hoxha, private car ownership was banned for nearly all ordinary citizens from the 1960s through the 1980s. This might sound like an extreme claim about a small, isolated country, but only senior government officials and a small number of approved institutions were permitted vehicles at all, leaving the general population dependent on bicycles and state transport. So this wasn't a temporary wartime restriction. It was part of a deliberate, decades-long campaign of near total national isolation from the outside world. Typewriter registration. In the same Cold War Albania, citizens were legally required to register any typewriter they owned with the government. Here's where it gets stranger. The registration existed specifically so that any printed dissent could be traced back to the exact machine, and eventually the exact person that typed it. Radios were sometimes physically altered to receive only state-approved channels. So this wasn't paranoid overreach without purpose. It was a functioning surveillance system built entirely around the idea that a piece of office equipment could become evidence. The Group Areas Act. In 1950, South Africa's apartheid government legally divided entire cities by race, assigning neighborhoods based on racial classification. For centuries, laws restricting where people could live existed in various forms around the world, but this one was enforced with total legal precision. Simply living in a neighborhood not officially assigned to your race was itself a criminal offense, and millions of people were forcibly relocated over the following decades. So this wasn't a policy that faded quietly. It remained in force for over 40 years, and its effects on housing and generational wealth are still measurable in South African cities today. Still illegal today. In parts of the United Kingdom, an old law technically still makes it illegal to be drunk inside a pub, even though it's essentially never enforced. This sounds like it must be an urban legend exaggerated online.
But the law genuinely originates from licensing legislation passed generations ago, and it was simply never formally repealed. So this isn't a myth invented for internet lists. It's a real, if forgotten, statute that survives purely because no legislature ever bothered to clean it off the books. Property rights restored. Starting in Mississippi in 1839, married women's property acts began slowly reversing coverture law across the United States, state by state. Of course, this sounds like it should have been one clean national reform, but each state passed its own version at its own pace, meaning a woman's legal rights could differ dramatically depending simply on where she lived, with New York's more comprehensive 1848 law becoming a model others eventually copied. So full legal equality wasn't achieved in one moment. It crept forward unevenly for decades before finally becoming standard nationwide. The Volstead Act. This law enforced prohibition by defining any beverage over 0.5% alcohol as illegal, closing a loophole that earlier drafts had left wide open.
Here's where it gets stranger. This strict threshold meant even very weak beer fell under the ban, unlike some other countries' prohibition laws that allowed low-alcohol drinks to remain legal. So America's version of prohibition wasn't a moderate policy with a few exceptions. Its strictness is part of why the black market that emerged around it grew so large and so profitable. The Salem Trials. In 1692, Salem, Massachusetts allowed witchcraft accusations based on spectral evidence, meaning testimony about a dream or vision could be used as legal proof. This might sound like an extreme detail invented later to dramatize the trials, but it was the actual legal standard. A person could be condemned entirely on someone else's claimed vision of their spirit causing harm, with no physical evidence required at all. So the 20 executions that followed weren't the result of ordinary courtroom error. They were the direct product of a legal system that had redefined what counted as evidence in the first place. The Stamp Act. In 1765, Britain required colonial Americans to pay a tax on nearly all printed paper, from legal documents to newspapers to playing cards. For a long time, this is remembered simply as an unpopular tax, but colonists had no representation in the parliament that passed it, giving rise to the rallying cry, "No taxation without representation," and organized boycotts forced a full repeal within just 1 year. So this small tax wasn't just an economic irritation. Historians consider it one of the key sparks that helped ignite the American Revolution. Sodomy Laws. Some U.S. states kept sodomy laws on the books well into the 21st century until the Supreme Court struck them all down nationwide in 2003. Incredibly enough, this ruling directly overturned an earlier Supreme Court decision from 1986 that had upheld similar laws as constitutional. Enforcement before that had varied enormously by state, with some using the laws as recently as the 1990s. So this wasn't a settled issue quietly fading into irrelevance. It was an active legal fight that the Supreme Court had to reverse itself on less than 2 decades later. Blasphemy Laws. In England, criticizing the Church of England was a criminal offense for centuries, with prosecutions continuing well into the 20th century. This might sound like ancient history with no modern relevance, but the last successful prosecution didn't happen until 1922 over a pamphlet deemed insulting to Christianity, and the law itself wasn't formally abolished until 2008. So this law wasn't just a relic of the distant past, it sat on the books, technically enforceable for nearly a century after most people assumed it no longer applied. Debtors Prison. Across England and the American colonies, people could be jailed indefinitely for unpaid debt well into the 19th century. Of course, this seems like an obviously self-defeating system, and it was, since debtors had no way to earn money to repay what they owed while locked away, sometimes for years.
Reform movements eventually argued the entire practice destroyed the very ability it claimed to enforce. So debtors' prison wasn't just cruel, it was structurally pointless. And England finally abolished most of it in 1869, with America phasing it out state by state around the same time. The Gin Act. In 1736, England taxed gin so heavily that lawmakers intended to make it effectively unaffordable for the working class. This might sound like a reasonable, if heavy-handed, public health measure, but instead of curbing drinking, it triggered riots and a massive underground smuggling trade almost overnight. Parliament was forced to repeal the harshest provisions just 7 years later once enforcement proved nearly impossible. So the law didn't solve the problem it was written for, it simply moved the entire gin trade underground, out of the government's reach entirely. Curfew Laws. Across the antebellum American South, enslaved people faced legal curfews after dark, requiring a written pass from an owner just to travel between locations. This is often described only in general terms in textbooks, but organized patrols were specifically empowered to stop and question any black person found outside these restrictions, free or enslaved, with punishment left almost entirely to local discretion. So this wasn't a minor local ordinance. It was one piece of a much broader legal system built to control nearly every hour of an enslaved person's daily life. The Homestead Act. In 1862, the United States legally granted 160 acres of land to any settler willing to farm it for 5 straight years.
This sounds like a straightforwardly generous piece of legislation, and in scale, it was. Roughly 1.6 million claims were eventually filed under the act over the following decades. But millions of the acres redistributed this way had been taken from indigenous nations already living on that land. So the law wasn't simply about opportunity, it reshaped an entire continent's ownership at a cost that fell almost entirely on people the law never consulted. Jim Crow laws. From the 1870s until the Civil Rights Act of 1964, laws across the American South enforced racial segregation in nearly every part of daily life. For a long time, the scale of this legal system is understated in how it's taught, but it governed everything down to separate school books and separate courtroom Bibles, and it was upheld by the Supreme Court's 1896 separate but equal doctrine for almost 60 years before being overturned. So Jim Crow wasn't simply social custom enforced by habit, it was a deliberately built legal architecture that took a full century and a Supreme Court reversal to fully dismantle. The Chinese Exclusion Act. In 1882, the United States passed the first major law restricting immigration by nationality, specifically targeting Chinese laborers. This might sound like a narrow, short-lived measure, but it was renewed repeatedly and expanded over the following decades, staying in force until it was finally repealed in 1943. Legal historians point to it as a direct template that shaped later, broader immigration restrictions. So this law wasn't an isolated incident quickly corrected. It became the blueprint other exclusionary immigration laws in the 20th century were built from. Witch hunts of Europe. Between the 15th and 18th centuries, formal witchcraft statutes across Europe led to an estimated 40,000 to 60,000 executions, the overwhelming majority of them women. For centuries, this has been treated as a single, uniform wave of hysteria, but prosecutions were often driven by very specific local panics, economic pressures, or personal disputes disguised as sorcery accusations, and certain German territories accounted for a wildly disproportionate share of the total. So this wasn't one continent-wide event, it was thousands of separate legal episodes, each shaped by local conditions that only look uniform from a distance. Defense of the Realm Act. In 1914, Britain passed a law giving the government sweeping wartime powers, including restrictions on buying binoculars without a permit. This detail alone sounds almost comedic today.
But the same law also allowed censorship of newspapers, requisitioning of private property, and civilian trials in military courts, expanding repeatedly throughout the war. So this wasn't a quirky, isolated restriction. It was one small visible piece of an enormous emergency legal framework that reshaped civil liberties in Britain for the entire duration of the war. The Prohibition Loophole. Alcohol bought and stockpiled before Prohibition took effect in 1920 remained completely legal to keep even after the nationwide ban began. This sounds like a minor, technical exemption, but it meant enforcement fell almost entirely on new production and sale, while existing private collections, often owned by wealthier households, stayed untouched by the law entirely. So Prohibition wasn't applied evenly across every level of society. Only those with the money to stock up in advance could legally benefit from a loophole most people never even had the chance to use. Forgotten local laws. Across American city archives today, old ordinances still sit on the books covering things like public whistling after certain hours or limits on backyard chickens. This might sound like a joke pulled from a list of internet trivia, but these laws are genuinely still legally valid in many cities, surviving purely because no one ever filed the paperwork to formally repeal them. So the strangest laws in this list aren't only historical curiosities from centuries past, some of them, quietly, are still technically the law.